Looks like we can. Great. So yeah, I decided when Manna asked me to speak to focus on things that save or earn money, just because there are so many things you can do, but you might as well do on the easy stuff first and the stuff that can pay for other things. So this is hardly an exhaustive list, but these are things that within the town's powers and generally positive for the environment. I probably could have come up with 20. It's actually ridiculously easy to save money while you're helping the environment. It won't get you to do everything we need to do, but it'll get you well along the way and get your town started. And so I'm just going to start in. One real easy thing is actually signing the town itself up for community solar or distributed solar. We'll actually talk, I think, a little bit more about distributed solar later for individuals, but you may as well sign your town up. It'll save about 10% on the smaller electricity bills for the town. It's sometimes difficult to sign up the bigger ones due to availability of town, but it gives you a 10% rebate there, and it also helps local solar farms. Probably the first thing I did in Marbletown when I started leading the commission in, I believe, like 2006 or 5 was a streetlight audit. There's actually a fair amount of money in recovering misbilling from your utility. The town of Marbletown managed to get back, found a lot of misbilling and managed to get back what works out to about $120 for every street light they said we had. They were saying we had 3 that we didn't actually have. That isn't good for the environment itself, but while you're at it, you can also tell them to fix day burners, lights that are on during the day, and it's great preparation for converting to LED. You can take out some lights that may not be needed. We found that a third of ours weren't needed. Of course, not burning that electricity is great for the environment, and it'll make it easier and cheaper to convert to LEDs when you do that. LED streetlight replacement is another sort of easy winner. Our streetlight replacement paid for itself in about 3 years. We used Central Hudson's offering, but you can also, if you're a larger municipality, get a third party, buy out the streetlights yourself, and produce higher monthly savings at a slightly higher upfront cost. Adopting the stretch energy code. So the stretch energy code is regulates new building in your town and substantial renovation. This chart is something I put together that looks at this. This is a state-sponsored improvement to the code, more strict code, and they did some studies about how much people would save on electricity for every expenditure. The blue bars there are how much savings they would expect an average new building built to the stretch energy code would save compared to just building to the standard code. The red bar is the additional cost of doing so on a 30-year mortgage at 4%, which is a higher rate than most people can get right now. So it would actually be less than that. There's also a little bit of additional tax because it'll improve the property value. And that is kind of nice for the town because passing the stretch energy code effectively increases property values in your town. So increases the tax, the amount of taxes you collect, the town collects, but it does so in a way that actually puts no burden on the building owner because of the energy savings. The extra they're paying in taxes is just a tiny fraction of the energy savings. So this is a way to increase your tax base without putting any burden on your residents at all. I'm really surprised more towns have not yet done it, but it's, and it makes a fairly big deal. Basically, it's stop building things wrong. It's not a giant improvement. but it does save everyone money and improve the local tax rate. Other great programs are getting discounts, negotiated discounts for community solar for other people. The county of Ulster has already set up a program that a town can just join for Solarize and help their residents sign up for community solar, save that 10% we were talking about. And if they get 10 residents to sign up, they get a $5,000 grant. I expect to hear a little bit more about that from Kat. The grant comes from the Clean Energy Communities Campaign, and she's the coordinator there. You can do the same thing with a Heat Smart campaign where you get negotiated discounts for heat pumps. This is our town's Parks and Recs director next to a heat pump that we had installed at our community center. We actually didn't do it through a campaign, but it was a picture I had available, the heat pump. And you can also do the same with an electric vehicle campaign. And Sustainable Hudson Valley has actually campaigns like that that are pretty much ready to go for any town to join. I just got a notification from NYSERDA that Marbletown Heat Smart campaign got approved using the Sustainable Hudson Valley Green Group Purchase Program. So if we get 10 more installs under that program, we'll get another $5,000 grant. And pretty much no upfront cost, just hold some events and encourage people to take advantage of discounts that you've negotiated for them. You can install electric vehicle chargers on municipal property. Right now, the state has 2 grants that are really useful for this. There is a $4,000 Make Ready grant, which is just a grant for every charging head that you install in public parking lots with 24-hour access. And they have to be certain chargers. They have to be network chargers so NYSERDA can keep track of usage. And there's also a Charge Ready grant run by the utilities, which will pay for up to 90% of trenching and wiring and upgrades of panels that you need. With these grants, there's sort of 2 ways to go. There's a couple of vendors out there that'll just go, okay, we're going to install all this for you. We'll take care of everything, and it'll cost you less than the amount of money you can get on the grants. Blink is offering that right now. There's a company called LilyPad, which will do something similar. Or if you want to manage it a little bit more, there's one EV charger brand that's quite cheap, the NL Juice Box. It only is network diverse via Wi-Fi, but if you have good Wi-Fi in one of your parking lots, you can install these. They cost about $1,400 each. You get 90% of the other costs paid for with the Charge Ready grant, and you still get $4,000 for it. So you'll be taking home over $1,000 per charger you install, and that will pay for charging people's vehicles for free for several years to come. So depending on how much work you wanted to do into it, you can actually even make money just by installing chargers right now. Or you can do it for basically 0 cost and have someone else take care of most of the work for you. Community choice aggregation is a way for the town to use the power of group purchasing to get a better deal on clean energy for its residents. Residents who haven't signed up for their own electricity, the town enables them to be signed up on an opt-out basis for a negotiated price that the town with a community choice aggregator negotiate with them. Marbletown's been doing this for now 2 years. The price you get is definitely better than the price that anyone individually can get for signing up for a third-party vendor. The price and that often pays for making the energy renewable. Because it's a fixed price option, you can't say that it's always going to be cheaper than Central Hudson's prices. During COVID, our experience was that it was a little more expensive because demand fell and Central Hudson prices fell. Most of the other time we've had it, it has saved residents some money, but we did get them basically for near zero cost, 100% renewable for that time. Again, this is a program that doesn't cost anything for the town and can actually bring some money into the town. Marbletown will be adding opt-out community solar to that, and that will actually automatically save all our residents up to 10% on that. And you have to do renewable electricity if you want to do opt-out community solar through the CCA. We are not doing a community solar campaign this year. We've done a couple in the past because we're going for this opt-out version, which just signs people up automatically unless they choose to opt out. Most of our buildings are old, and you can actually save a fair amount of money by upgrading them. It also these are your own municipal buildings. This is a picture of the attic of our community center where we ripped out this old, pretty much worthless rat-infested infestation and later put in blow-in spray foam. There's a Flex Tech program that will pair you with a consultant who can help you decide what the opportunities of your town, what your town has to actually save money, how long the paybacks will be, etc., and potentially do this for you. And there are often subsidies for getting those studies done. If you have significant open area owned by the town, you can lease that area to a solar installer and they can pay you rent. You could also install solar and pay for it yourself. That's generally not the best option for a municipality because municipalities can't take advantage of the tax break. So instead you can lease your land to someone who gets the tax breaks and they will pay you with
I'm roasting potatoes in the oven, and if you can make the beans and use the arugula salad.
Talking and roasting potatoes. This picture here is a proposal we got for our High Falls Water District. It was pretty surprising. We got, generally you need about a couple acres of land to get a decent rental option lease, but we actually managed to find a proposal that used only about a quarter of an acre. It did fall through because a couple of board members.
Are we disconnected?
Sorry. Got it. Please mute yourself if you're not actually speaking now, or thank you. And then my last is demand response. This is something that any commercial entity, so larger towns that have large facilities such as water districts or wastewater districts, actually those buildings often can sign up with the utility to cut their energy usage during high usage times and get an annual payment. Demand response is, it's generally, you generally only have to cut your usage for a couple times a year. There usually aren't a lot of events in this town, but in the Mid-Hudson region, but it's just straight up revenue for the town, and it's good for the environment generally because it means we don't have to build as much infrastructure, and long term it should help integrate renewable energy. Anyway, so those are a really quick run through 10 things. I probably could have come up with 20 things, but the goal here is to get you inspired that where do I start? I would say start with the things that bring money into the town and the things that your town board are probably going to agree with. And as you bring in some money and help the environment, you'll build credibility and be able to do some, persuade your board to do some of the harder things. So I'll take a couple of questions, but I think we'll then go on to the next speaker. And Manna's going to pass this presentation around later.
Yeah, and we will, one thing we didn't do was ask people to pre-register. So if people could just put their name, town, and email in the chat, we will send around the slides and the link to the video. So please do that, and we'll save the chat, and that's how we'll be able to keep in touch. If for some reason you're unable to put your information in the chat, just please send it to manajo@clearwater.org. It's easy to remember. And so thank you all, and thank you, Tom. And we'll take one question for Tom, and then we'll have a longer Q&A period, and we can come back to him. Does anyone have a question for Tom? Please raise your hand and we'll call on you, and you can unmute yourself.
It looks like Kathy Nolan raised her hand.
Okay, great.
Yes, thank you, Tom. That's a great presentation and very helpful. There are 2 towns in the district that I previously represented that I hope to represent again that have not yet taken a climate smart pledge, and this kind of presentation is what can help them understand why that can be, beneficial. So the question I have is, so that's a thank you. The question is, do all or most of the programs you mentioned also give subsidies or rebates to nonprofit organizations as well as municipalities?
Well, I mean, a lot of these things are like this. I have to answer one by one. I mean, like streetlights, and nonprofit isn't going to do it, but like the EV charger installs, a nonprofit definitely could do. You could definitely do a community campaign if you want. You wouldn't get the $5,000 grant, but so a lot of them you really have to dig down through each. If you just send me, you have my email, so just send me an email if you have specific ones that you want to know.
And Kathy, if I could add, Cornell Cooperative Extension Dutchess has a program to answer everyone's questions about at least the NYSERDA incentives, and they really know this stuff A to Z, and also Kat and Europa on this call can help. So there are resources, and when we send this information around, we'll be sure and include all those resources. And speaking of Kat, at this point, I'd like to invite Kat Carroll to share her screen and share her information.
All right, thanks so much, Manna. I look forward to speaking with you guys about the Climate Smart Communities program in a little bit more depth. Can you see my screen? Yes, okay, perfect. Okay, so thank you, Tom, for that wonderful presentation. A number of the actions that Tom spoke about are actually actions under the Clean Energy Communities program, which I'll talk about at the end of my presentation. So there are a number of resources available to you if you're considering those. So I am a Clean Energy Community Coordinator with the Hudson Valley Regional Council, which means that I work directly with municipalities to advance actions under the Climate Smart Communities program under the Department of Environmental Conservation and the Clean Energy Communities program under the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And I wanted to give a brief introduction into the Climate Smart program for those who are just getting started and don't know much about it yet. And I also wanted to share some tips on how to navigate the portal should it be your first time doing that. So I think it's always best to start with a reminder of why we're here. And if you heard about the recent IPCC report, you know that there's a significant amount of urgency to encourage climate action and to take climate action. Human-caused greenhouse gas emissions have already increased the temperature in New York State 1.3 degrees Celsius since 1970. And dependent on how strong our climate action response is, we could see globally increases in temperature between 1.2 and 1.9 degrees Celsius by 2040. And then we get up to 3 degrees by 2100 if no action is taken. So that's a short but necessary reminder of the reasons why we're here. New York is taking action on climate in a number of different ways. And in 2019, with the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, a number of nation-leading climate targets were established. And those include an 85% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, 100% zero emission electricity by 2040, 70% renewables by 2030, and then a number of targets for offshore wind, energy storage, and solar that are our near-term targets that we have to meet. And all of these are binding, which means that there is a legislative requirement that we meet these targets and that we do so in an effective and justice-oriented manner. So the Climate Smart Communities program is where you volunteers can come in. As you can imagine, it's incredibly important that municipalities join in the lead on this strong climate action. We need everyone involved and we need every voice at the table. So the Climate Smart Communities program is a program of the Department of Environmental Conservation that provides state support for local climate action. And it provides assistance and clear pathways for local government leaders to reduce greenhouse gas pollution and build resiliency in the face of climate change. So both the adaptation and the mitigation side. There are 343 total communities registered, and 70 of those are certified bronze or silver. 2,309 actions have been completed. Many of them are the actions that Tom spoke about, as there is a significant overlap between the CEC and the CSC programs. So those are the numbers. And if your municipality isn't registered yet, it would be a great time to start. So there are 12 pledge elements within the Climate Smart Communities program, if you hadn't had an introduction to it yet. And they include things like inventorying emissions, planning for climate action, decreasing energy usage, implementing climate smart land use, and informing and educating the public. So the path that every community takes towards climate smart certification is different. It's sort of pick what you need type of path. And there are a number of options available to you. The two actions that are mandatory are establishing a CSC task force and appointing a CSC coordinator. So if you're on the call and your municipality is interested but hasn't yet become a climate smart community, you could be one of those people. You could be a CSC coordinator, or you could help establish that task force. And that would be a significant contribution to the sustainability of your municipality. It's also necessary that you take a number of priority actions in order to apply for certification. And those include things like greenhouse gas inventories, natural resource inventories, vulnerability assessments like flood assessments, for instance, or energy audits. So again, there are a number of potential choices here. And because there are 90+ actions within the CSC program, we don't have time to go through them in depth, each one. But if you're interested in exploring more, go to climatesmart.ny.gov. Click on the Actions and Certification button that's highlighted in orange on this screen. And then in the lower left, you'll see a box that says Actions and select Learn More. And that will display all of the pledge elements and all of the actions within each pledge element. And that gives you a really great way to understand what actions are available in the Climate Smart program, which can often seem very large and overwhelming at first. So that's one great way to explore. If you need more tips on navigating the Climate Smart portal, check out Hudson Valley Regional Council's video series. And again, this link will be in the PowerPoint that's sent around. And these tutorials will help you navigate that portal again. As a clean energy community coordinator, I'm also available to help answer any questions that you have. And before I go, I wanted to talk quickly about the Climate Smart and Clean Energy grants that are available. The Climate Smart grants open every year, and they are 50% match grants, which means that 50% comes from the municipality. And if you're awarded a grant, then 50% would come from the state directly. For implementation projects, which would be carbon emissions reduction projects or adaptation projects, you could win up to $2 million in grant funding. And for certification projects, which would be things like comprehensive plans with sustainability elements or climate action plans or greenhouse gas inventories, you could apply for up to $100,000 in grant funding. And lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Clean Energy Communities Program. For those of you who are just getting started, the Clean Energy Communities Program is absolutely a great way to go. It's very similar. It's a sister program to the Climate Smart program, and it has a reduced number of actions. It has 13 high impact actions, and that really can help you narrow down what your municipality wants to focus on in the very beginning, and it can be a great first step. And any actions that you take within the Clean Energy Communities Program can also count for points within the Climate Smart Communities Program. So that's important to know as well. And finally, grant funding within the Clean Energy Communities Program. There are a lot of numbers on this slide, but what I'll tell you is that you can earn up to $40,000 if you're a small community within the Mid-Hudson region at this point in time. So that's a significant amount of funding, and that funding comes from the achievement of the action. So once you achieve the action and you submit enough actions to reach a certain threshold, then you are awarded grant funding for your achievement. So it's an incentive-based climate leadership program. And I know that was a lot of information all at once. So if you have any questions, my email is kcarroll@hudsonvalleyrc.org. And you're welcome to shoot an email my way, and I will try my best to get you the answers that you need. I am employed for exactly that purpose, so it is my day job to make sure that you get those answers. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing Europa McGovern's presentation next. I also have time for 1 or 2 questions if anyone has them. And if not, that's totally okay. We can move on to Europa.
All right, well, I guess with that, I'll just jump in. Thank you for the introduction, Kat. And I commend the previous speakers for staying on target with the time. I think we're doing really well. We're only 3 minutes behind here. So, again, thank you everyone for the introduction before, but I'm Europa McGovern. I'm with the Ulster County Department of the Environment. I actually don't have a formal presentation tonight. I'm about to send a link to a web page screen share that I'll do in a moment. But a brief introduction to the County Department of the Environment. Basically, we're a unique department, as far as we know, in the dozens of counties in New York State. We coordinate environmental policy, sustainability initiatives, and natural resource planning across county government operations. And then we also, part of our goal is to support this work in the community, especially via our 24 component municipalities, as we call you. And so what I'm here tonight to talk about is one piece of that role, which is the Ulster County Climate Smart Municipal Task Force. And Manna, you did say it right before, so I know it's a mouthful. So I'm just going to do a quick screen share of the county's Climate Smart Communities webpage, which I just sent the link for. I believe you can see that now, right? So basically, the Municipal Task Force is an ad hoc subcommittee of the County Climate Smart Committee. And if you have questions about the Climate Smart Committee, Legislator Manna Greene is our chair, so I'm sure she can answer them as well. But I'm just going to jump right into the task force. So basically the task force, we're kind of getting off the ground, but our focus is really on supporting local municipalities in climate smart communities program actions specifically. So we're very kind of action and project oriented. The webpage I'm showing is the county's Climate Smart Communities webpage. For those of you who may have encountered our wonderful volunteers at the fair, you may have seen that nice 2x3 foot frame poster on a, on a tripod there, where what that showed this map. Let me scroll to this on the web page. And so this map, that's one of the things we do, is maintain this. And this basically is showing in a snapshot, to our best of our knowledge, day to day, the regional participation in the Climate Smart Communities program. So Kat previously showed that statewide map, but we at Department of the Environment also, again, because we're trying to support and coordinate this work across the local municipalities, we really are trying to keep apprised of who's doing what, support them in doing that work. And then also, if you scroll down on this webpage, we do our best to maintain the contacts, and that's key. So I think I heard a few towns are represented tonight that aren't necessarily actively participating in the Climate Smart Communities program. So, I think it's great that you're already in touch and you're interested and you're attending tonight. But just in case, somehow you don't have aren't able to connect with us, you can also go here as a resource to get some local contacts. The only thing I will mention about this page is it only really gives you context for the towns that are already actively participating. And again, I know Manna and Kim and myself and everyone here tonight that's already doing this work in your community. We know that sometimes it can be a heavy lift to get this work off the ground in your community. So we're kind of collectively trying to be a resource. And now you have our contact information, so we can coordinate with you directly. So there's also, I just wanted to mention on this webpage, there's a link to a Facebook page as well, somewhere on this page. I don't want to scroll too much for your eyes. But some of you may have seen the event tonight. It's the Ulster County Climate Smart Task Force Facebook page. And then I just wanted to touch on a couple of projects that we've done lately in coordination with local municipalities. So one, Tom, thank you for mentioning the Community Solarize campaign. So I'm just going to switch tabs here. So basically, Ulster County has coordinated a Solarize campaign, and the goal is to get town residents, or across the county, that is, county residents, to enroll for community solar subscriptions with all the benefits that Tom described. We actually went through a competitive bidding process and picked these 3 community solar vendors, 2 of which have several active projects, the first 2 here. So you can go to this webpage, you can sign up for community solar. One of the benefits, the additional benefits that comes with participating and enrolling through the county's campaign, is that enrollees will get a $100 gift card. In some cases, I hear it's mailed very rapidly after you enroll. And additionally, $100 will be donated by the vendors to a county Green New Deal fund. So those are great benefits that we were able to negotiate through this competitive bidding process. The other piece that Tom alluded to is, again, linking it back to our goal of supporting local municipalities in completing Climate Smart Communities program actions, is that 3 communities, Hurley, Olive, and actually the city of Kingston recently, all launched their own local sort of spin-off campaigns under the umbrella of the county's campaign. So basically their local campaigns were just amplifying the message of the county campaign. And through that, they were actually each able to enroll some, 10 plus customers in each of their communities, and they're now going to qualify for $5,000 grants. So we're really excited that we were able to support these communities, enhance the campaign, and then also support them in getting grants to, do more projects in their towns. And then lastly, I'll just say that, we coordinated with a BARD Center for Environmental Policy graduate class last year, and we were able to work with 2 towns on a specific Climate Smart Communities program action called Climate Smart Resiliency Planning Tool. I won't get into that, except to say that we are trying to connect municipalities with resources like graduate students at Bard and you know, just various other opportunities. So there may be some that arise in the future. And I think I'll end there. Like I said, I sent the link to this webpage, to the Climate Smart Communities webpage, that is, and look forward to supporting this work in the future.
That was great, Europa. Can you hear me? Because my audio wasn't so good earlier. Okay. So at this point, does anyone have any questions for Europa? She's a wonderful resource at the Department of the Environment. Always very helpful. I'm looking in the chat. I would say type it in there if you have a question. I'm looking to see if anyone has their hands up. I'm not seeing it. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, so thank you, Europa. At this point, Manna Joe Greene, you were going to speak about Scenic Hudson solar mapping tool, correct?
Yes, I'm pinch hitting for Audrey Freidrichsen, who is really the expert. But she sent me her slides and I'm going to do the best I can. And if we can't answer your questions here, we'll refer them on to Audrey. Let me share my screen.
You know what, Manna? I do see a question for Europa. So
okay, go ahead.
So I see from Kathy Nolan, both Ulster County and the city of Kingston are silver level climate smart communities. This could also go to Kat. Is there any place that that is a gold level?
So that's a great question, Kathy. So it's Manna probably knows this well as a legislator, that the county has passed a resolution. I think it was a couple of years ago now. The resolution is linked on that webpage, basically stating that our goal is to achieve gold level climate smart community certification by 2025. As Kat probably well knows, and as those of us working in this arena know, the DEC and the other partner state agencies that sort of, you know, oversee the Climate Smart Communities program have not yet established the gold standard. So much like Ulster County was the first silver certified county back in 2016, and same with the city of Kingston, you know, we continually demonstrate leadership. And so in some sense, I think we're helping to set the bar, create the bar, that is, because the standard hasn't been developed yet. But I'm sure, hopefully they're looking to what we're doing to get some ideas. And I don't know, Kat, if you had any more information on that.
Fingers crossed, Europa. We keep, you know, it keeps being promised that gold standard will come out, and someday it will, but the timeline has not yet been set. I do expect Kingston and Ulster to be at the forefront again.
Okay, great. And then also, I think there's a question from Anne asking maybe Kat for you to put your, I think it was Kat, you put up your phone number, right? In your presentation, to just share that in the chat for people.
I shared my email in the chat, but I believe that she was referring to the Ulster County Solarize webpage and those phone numbers there. And that is in the chat as well.
Okay, great. So
I think I'm gonna get started talking about Scenic Hudson's How to Solar Now toolkit. And I want to introduce it by saying that there is a Mid-Hudson Regional Sustainability Coalition that's been meeting for about a decade. We published a sustainability report in 2013, and we continue to meet. And one of our goals is to get every town in the 7-county Mid-Hudson Economic Development Region to map the solar potential in their community. If the state's goal is 70% renewables by 2030, how can we contribute each to that 70% goal? And so Scenic Hudson has developed an excellent toolkit, and it has several different components. And I want to commend town of Marbletown as the first town that is committed to using this toolkit and going through a process that will ultimately tell developers where are good areas for solar development, and ideally with storage or other renewables. And this one is focused on solar, but there could be low impact hydro, there could be appropriate use of wind, and in the Hudson River, there ultimately could be tidal. And I say that knowing that my colleagues, the sister river organizations would want me to add that it be done in a way that protects the ecology of the Hudson River. So that's a little bit down the road. But we need to do it all. And this guide, this toolkit has a guide for siting renewable energy in the Hudson Valley, and a Scenic Hudson's mapping tool, and then also best practices and recommendations for solar zoning. And all of this is available on howtosolarnow.org. So there's the Scenic Hudson Clean Energy Green Communities Guide to Siting. And then to the right of that is the How to Solar Now solar zoning. And it's my recommendation that if a town engages in this process, that they include at some point, either during the development of a report or as soon as it is ready, before it becomes, adopted, that input is received from both siting and zoning boards. I'd ask everyone else to please, can you mute whoever's making noise, Kat? Thank you. Okay, so wait, it went for, see what happened. There we go. Scenic Hudson's solar mapping tool is has several parts, several modules to complete the program. And this is what we're looking at. And what we don't want to do is cut down forests, which sequester carbon and other greenhouse gases. We don't want to be paving over prime farmland, but there are ways of using farmland that is not ideal for growing, but if a farmer could put some solar on there, it might help them to stay in business as a farm and practice regenerative farming. So those are the two main areas, but also other sensitive ecosystems. And these are the components. What's the deal with solar? Smart solar planning, then learning about the GIS layers, and then putting it all together. And this looks complicated, but it's a map of the GIS layers. And when you're working on it, all those words go away and you just have little icons. So, this would be a brand new process for me and for the representative from Marbletown. And we have a woman who's quite expert at GIS who's going to work with us. And anyone else, I would love it if, I don't remember if Socrates is represented on the call, but I talked to the town supervisor. They have a lot of solar already in development, and they would be great to participate. And for everyone on this call, work on your municipality to pass the climate pledge, to get certified, to do the high impact actions, but also to map their community. And maybe we can ask NYSERDA to give us credit for doing that. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and we can go into, I'll take one question on that, but now we have a few minutes for a question and answer session. I don't know how to make the panelists only show up on the top of the screen, but if the panelists would all be visible, that would be great. And we'll take questions. And Kat and Kim, if you can watch the chat, I'll look for raised hands.
Okay, so someone, Penny already asked, what is GIS?
What is?
GIS, I think she's
Oh,
talking about.
thank you. It's Geographic Information Services. No, that's not right. It's Geographic
Systems, I
Information
think.
System. And
Information systems.
yes, and it's a way of, it's, if you have layers already created, you could have a layer that shows all your wetlands, all your houses and built environment, where the schools are, where the grid is, where the farms are, where the prime farmland is, where the forests and sensitive ecosystems are. And you can add these layers so that you can get a picture of a map of your community. And then based on your goals and values and the guidance from the siting and zoning documents, your town can develop essentially a solar plan and be sure that your perhaps maybe your planning or zoning needs to be adapted given the climate crisis. In some towns and cities, it may have been developed 25 years ago and it may need updating, but participating in this process will help identify that. If you guys don't come up with more questions, I'm going to call on.
There is another question. Kathy Puffer is asking, is food waste and potential sites for biogas part of solar mapping?
It's not part of solar mapping, but it can be part of renewable energy mapping that the community could add. And if a layer is not available, it could be developed.
Yeah, it's certainly something that a CSC task force could look at. It's not part of solar mapping, but if you're going the CSC route, developing a policy for biodigesters like the one I've toured at your house, Kathy, would certainly be something to look at.
Do you mind if I say something, Manager?
Yes.
So one thing I want to say is we have like a wide range of people on here with varied experience with these topics. So it is a lot of information and we understand it's a lot to digest. Some people may be more comfortable with this material than others. And I just want to say that, you know, people who are interested in working on these issues, you can learn as you go, and there are trainings available to you. So for example, in our town, you know, we had to do benchmarking, which was measure greenhouse gas emissions, and people on our task force were trained through Cornell Cooperative Extension. So I just don't want you to be overwhelmed by all this information. It's just to try to see what you're interested in, if there's anything that you're passionate about. There are so many different opportunities here for you to do something at the community level. And yeah, so I don't know if that's helpful, but the other thing I'd say is really a good thing to do is Kat had just talked about going to that portal and looking at those 90 different projects. So we tapped on, you know, into some of them, but there are many, many other projects. Like you could have environmental education, climate change events. You could do tree plantings, all kinds of different things. So this is kind of like top line and just trying to, you know, just let you know there's also many other things out there for you to do. Kind of chipping away at this at the municipal level.
So there are a couple more questions in the chat, and I definitely have the answer to at least one of them. So Neil Curry asked if one of the climate smart actions is to develop a unified solar permit. And that is one of the climate smart communities actions. It's also one of the actions within the clean energy communities program. So you can get credit for that under either program. And there is a sample permit that we can send out to your town if you're interested. And then you can make slight modifications to that. And it really, it helps smooth the pathway for rooftop solar under 25 kilowatts. And it helps make that a lot faster. And the solar siting guide is consistent with that. The solar project that Manna's talking about is mapping all of the solar potential within the municipality. So some of it would probably be under the unified solar permit, under that 25 kilowatts, and other parts would be larger. Say you have 2 or 3 acres, then you're talking about that type of land lease that Tom was discussing earlier. And then there was a second question that I saw, which was what happened to the Green Business Initiative? So I'm not entirely sure what the answer to that one is, if anyone has some insight.
Manna, would you
That
like
one's
me
for
to
Manna.
take a stab at that?
I was reading the chat, and so somebody's going to have to refresh what that question was.
So someone asked what happened to the Green Business Initiative. So I was just going to reply that the County Department of the Environment, in coordination with the Office of Economic Development, is in the process of hiring an environmental outreach manager. In some sense, that job title could be Green Business Service Administrator, which is, you know, the Office of Economic Development has business service administrators, which connect businesses with resources. And so part of this new position's role will be to develop a county scale Green Business Champions program. And then once the sort of framework of that program is developed, work to connect local businesses with various resources and opportunities, you know, within the guidelines of that program. And Manna, I'm sure you have more to say on that.
Well, just that there was a Green Business Challenge that was developed sort of ad hoc, and quite a few people on this call actually participated in the development of an outline, so that, and Tom Konrad was especially helpful in developing an outline that businesses can use to figure out what's their low-hanging fruit. What's the first thing? Should they do an energy retrofit, a lighting retrofit? Should they start composting? Should they put solar on their roof? So we defined a series of climate solutions that they could work on, and the questions would lead them to understand what the low-hanging fruit, what the first step to take, and then they can reinvest the savings in the next step. And there would be a team of people to support them and answer questions. And that was a goal of the legislature, and it took a while, and the executive branch has embraced it. And then as part of the Green New Deal, and then COVID hit, and the Department of Environment was very focused on just helping people survive, getting food and you know, the necessary things to get through that crisis, and is now able to actually hire someone. The good thing is we actually have a package ready, so they're not starting from scratch. So the work that we did 5 years ago will have value, and you know, it can be modified, of course, but it's a starting place. Thank you for asking about that, and thanks also to the Department of Environment and also, you know, they help be sure that the ad for hiring someone really made it appropriate. It wasn't just a generic administrator. It was somebody who would know and already have some background in energy and other climate solutions and really be able to help the businesses. So we're grateful for that and not a moment too soon.
So there's another question in the chat for Tom, and it is from Kelly Augenfuss, and she is asking, in the streetlight audit, how did you find out whether residents wanted to keep the streetlights or not?
So the town sent letters to all the residents within, I can't remember, 100 yards or 200 yards of that owned property owners within 100 yards of any streetlight we were considering removing. And we removed all the ones that no one objected to. And then we had some where it was mixed, and we held a public hearing on those where the responses were mixed. And the ones where the people said they want to keep it and there weren't people who wanted to get rid of it, we just dropped it. So yeah, it was the towns can send out have databases of the property owners, since we use those to send out letters. We also did a little bit of door knocking.
Any other questions?
So there's a final one that I see in the chat, which is again about solar, and it is Berlin, Germany passed a law requiring rooftop solar starting in 2023. Have any towns in the US done this? And I know that recently California passed a law requiring rooftop solar on new construction, which was really exciting. And California leads the country in a lot of ways on environmental initiatives. So that has happened, and it would be great to see that sort of legislation spread across the country as well. But we have to see it in New York.
Yeah, I would like to say that the New York Energy Stretch Code, which was one of my 10 actions, does include provisions for solar ready, which is making it planned at least for solar when you build the building in new buildings. I don't know, Marbletown may look at requiring that. It's definitely on my to-try list, but I always have lots of projects up there.
And just tonight, at a meeting of the committee chairs, we asked where things stood with a feasibility study for rooftop solar on all the county buildings. It was promised a while ago, and I think it was one of those things that went to a back burner with COVID, but Kathy Nolan will be glad to hear we're moving it back to a front burner. We're going to get that feasibility study done. And also there is a resolution in development that no more fossil fuel in planning buildings and replacing boilers. Moving forward, we would wean ourselves off of fossil fuel in the county and the county systems. And also that all this federal funding, the American Rescue Plan would any project that was going to receive that federal funding would have to do a climate impact assessment, so that we're not just wantonly, building things without thinking about their impact on the climate, or starting or funding programs. If we're going to be spending public funds, it should have a positive impact on the climate crisis and not worsen it. So those are being considered And I'd love to get a copy of any legislation that can help, because at this point, given the climate crisis, that's my entire focus. I've tried to influence the process, but I haven't written a lot of laws other than the composting law. That was the main law. I don't know. I know that Legislator Laura Petit was on the call. She may have had to leave, but she is a big supporter. Legislator Tracy Bartels, et cetera. Eve Walters is, going to be sponsoring the resolution to stop using fossil fuel. And which is what the IPC says. If we stop using fossil fuel, then there's room for the literally hundreds of other climate solutions. But if we continue to burn fossil fuel for heat and electricity, it's almost like the other climate solutions don't matter. That is, we're in a crisis. It's getting worse rapidly, and the best and first thing to do is stop burning fossil fuel. I would also like to specifically ask any of the presenters if they have any closing comments. And I want to start with Kim, who has just been amazing in her dedication to be sure that we engage people in climate solutions and the Climate Smart Committee and Task Force.
Okay, thank you so much, Manna. You've been great. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, first of all, I just want to thank everyone for coming. It's really, this is great that you're showing interest, you're showing up, you're interested in helping with this problem in our area. And I just encourage you to reach out to the people on this call. I'll put my email on here, and to say, for some of you who are in communities that have not taken the pledge, we actually, my husband and I worked on starting this up in Gardner, and we've learned a lot as we went, and it was very doable if you just look at it, one project at a time. So I just encourage you to work on this. And also just to let you know, if this isn't really, you're not able to connect with your local community, the fourth Monday of every month, we have the county Climate Smart Committee. And that's a great place to connect with people. Currently, we are meeting in person, but we are looking into trying to have some sort of hybrid Zoom in-person meeting. And yeah, so if anyone has any questions, just let us know.
And I would like to remind people about the solar mapping toolkit and the solar mapping project. And if your community has taken the pledge, see if they will participate. And if your community hasn't taken the pledge, as Kim said, we'll support you to find a way to get every community in Ulster County to take the pledge. And maybe your first action would be to map the solar or other renewable potential, and also the potential for storage. I actually believe that almost every solar project should have storage right then and there, and then it makes it 24/7 reliable, dispatchable, etc. And it's a big investment, but it's probably the most important investment we can be making, so that we can then focus on drawdown lists, 100 climate solutions, and there are a lot more. Let's see, Kat, do you have any closing remarks?
Sure. I just wanted to thank Kim and Manna Joe for organizing and putting on this event, and for everyone for attending, and make myself available as a resource for you as you and your communities begin to think about these climate smart actions and pursue them. And you have my email, it's in the chat, and feel free to contact me there if you have any thoughts about the presentation.
And Europa, any closing
Oh.
words?
I'll just echo Kat's sentiments. Thank you, everyone. Really a pleasure to see some new faces, and I hope we can keep this momentum and energy going.
And big thanks to Tom Konrad, who's just been such an innovator in the larger community, and to all of you for participating.